Blastoise is among the most famous Pokemon of all time. It was on the box art of the very first generation, with an iconic design that inspired awe and wonder. Blastoise is a childhood favorite of many players who started their journey with the first Pokemon games. While Charizard is the most well-known Gen 1 starter Pokemon, Blastoise really isn't that far behind in popularity. But among the Gen 1 starter trio, Blastoise has always been the worst one competitively. Charizard has had his time in the sun, being a great Pokemon in Gen 3 OU, having occasional viability in doubles, and even receiving 2 great Mega Forms. Venusaur also received one of the better Mega Forms, has been a viable choice on Sun teams throughout the years itself, and has a good utility move pool that made it reasonably viable in the old generations. But since the beginning, Blastoise has always been extremely average. Even in the first generation, it was outclassed by other water types. Starmie exists in Gen 1 and is directly superior to Blastoise in just about every way. This was also true in generations 2 and 3. Mega Blastoise was rather underwhelming compared to Mega Venusaur and Charizard, which were both excellent. And further attempts to buff Blastoise over the years have been generally unsuccessful. Why is this famous and widely recognizable Pokemon so average and competitive? And has it ever been used in any real capacity by pro players? Let's take a look. Subscribe to the channel to ensure that Makago can secure funding from his old friend Squavit to pay off his trillions in debt that he owes to Furret. Thank you. In Gen 1, Blastoise may actually be at its worst. Usually the opposite is true. These old classic Pokemon get worse as the series progresses, but Blastoise in Gen 1 is pretty terrible. It's ranked in the never used tier, completely outclassed by just about every other water type in the game. Up in OU, you would much rather use Starmie, who has access to Recover and a way better move pool and stats. Lapras and Cloyster are more desirable. Even in underused, Blastoise is outclassed by Tentacruel and Vaporeon. Even Poliwrath is a more desirable choice than Blastoise. This Pokemon's stats are just incredibly average, even for a fully evolved starter. In Generation 2, Blastoise did at least receive a unique new tool. Rapid Spin, one of the best moves in the game. Rapid Spin is able to remove hazards from the field, which from Gen 2 onwards is an important thing to be able to do on competitive teams. But in a cruel twist of fate, Starmie also received Rapid Spin in Generation 2 and continued to outclass Blastoise in this role. Cloyster also received Rapid Spin and is far bulkier with a massive defense stat. Blastoise is at least not a Psychic type, which has slight benefit over Starmie in particular situations. It's not weak to Dark or Bug, but in Gen 2 these are pretty uncommon types, and Starmie has a positive matchup against the 2 most common Dark type Pokemon anyway, so this isn't a particularly useful trait, and Blastoise, without having Recover or much else to set it apart, is pretty bad in Generation 2 as well. In Generation 3, Blastoise has been used by pro players before. It has an extremely niche use case, but it is still a use case nonetheless. Blastoise is still outclassed by Starmie the majority of the time. Starmie can heal. Starmie has utility. Starmie even has a new ability now, Natural Cure, to buff it further. Blastoise just gets Torrent, which is a lot less exciting. But a mono water typing is more valuable here than it was last generation. Bug types are more common. Bug type coverage is more common, and Dark Resistance is relevant, as Starmie can actually have trouble against Pursuit Tyranitar sets in this generation, more so than it did in Gen 2. Blastoise is more solid in those areas, and also it has some unique moveset options, not available to Starmie. Blastoise gets Roar, a nice phasing move that forces the enemy to switch out and can provide some counterplay to boost sweepers and button pass chains. Having a bulky water type with Rapid Spin and Roar on the same set is actually rather nice roll compression, and it's something Starmie can't do. Blastoise also gets access to Refresh. This is pretty nice because Refresh is able to cure status ailments and allow Blastoise to 1v1 Skarmory. Skarmory will commonly use Toxic even against Starmie, who has Natural Cure, to eventually force it out and establish spikes. But Blastoise is able to simply cure the poison and continuously Rapid Spin in the face of Skarmory. Blastoise also does have superior defensive stats to Starmie, and this comes up in Gen 3. Having a good base special defense stat means you can withstand hits from Gengar pretty well. Gengar is a common switch into Blastoise as it blocks Rapid Spin, but Blastoise can actually hold its own against Gengar pretty well, sometimes even better than Starmie can. Torrent comes in handy here, as a Thunderbolt will put you into range of that Torrent boost, allowing a Hydro Pump to KO many Gengar sets. The player Blue's Energy saw potential in Blastoise on his famous Slacking Blastoise balance team. The fact that Blastoise cannot heal directly was patched up with a Wish Jirachi on the team to provide support, not only to Slacking and Flygon, who appreciate create a form of healing themselves, but also Blastoise. Being able to squeeze in Roar and have that line in the Gengar matchup is more worthwhile for this team than a Starmie would be. So this is a rare case where Blastoise is better than Starmie in a specific context. In Generation 5, they attempted to buff Blastoise. They gave it a fancy new ability, Rain Dish, which allows it to heal an extra 1/16 of its health every turn while Rain is active. This is a fantastic ability, and it's well abused in Gen 5, where Politoed is able to set permanent rain on the field. With the new and improved Scald, one of the best attacks ever made in Pokemon, rapid spin support, and this excellent ability, this seemed like a perfect storm for Blastoise to finally be viable. However, Blastoise unfortunately was once again outclassed by a fellow Gen 1 water type. Tentacruel also received Rain Dish in Generation 5 and is generally superior to Blastoise. Poison typing is better defensively, making you neutral to grass, which is extremely useful, granting immunity to toxic poison, a form of counterplay against toxic spikes, and fighting resistance. Tentacruel also has superior stats, most notably its high speed, allowing it to outrun many enemies and threaten them with a powerful Scald boosted by the rain. There's a common theme of Blastoise receiving a new tool, but something else receiving the same tool and being strictly better. It's pretty unfortunate, isn't it? In Gen 6, Mega Evolutions were introduced, and Blastoise received one that on the surface looks pretty good. It has seriously improved stats, most notably look at that 135 base special attack, which is very impressive. And it has the new ability Mega Launcher, which grants bonus damage of 1.5 times to pulse-based moves, such as Dark Pulse and Water Pulse. This looks promising, but in practice, it is pretty underwhelming. Mega Blastoise is slow. The moves buffed by this ability are limited. Water Pulse is not a great move with low base power. And then you have Dark Pulse and Dragon Pulse, which are good coverage, but if you want that damage boost, you are sort of restricted to a pretty limited selection of moves that get buffed by Mega Launcher. So spending your Mega Stone on this Pokemon, which you can only have one of per team, is not a great deal. Comparing this to Mega Charizard and Mega Venusaur, it isn't even close. Mega Venusaur has fantastic bulk and the ability Thick Fat, which is generally extremely useful, and both of the Mega Charizard forms are also extremely good and consistent. Mega Charizard Y gets Drought to set Sun on the field, not only buffing your fire type attacks, but allowing you to use Solar Beam, and Mega Charizard X gets Tough Claws, a blanket boost to all physical moves. Mega Blastoise is just an unimpressive Mega form that isn't very desirable. It's ranked in the UU tier, which is better than Blastoise in its base form, but not particularly fantastic considering how great some other Mega forms have proven to be. In Gen 8, Blastoise got some more new stuff. They gave Blastoise the thematically appropriate Shell Smash, which is one of the best boosting moves in Pokemon history, granting +2 attack, special attack, and speed in a single turn, at the small cost of -1 defense and special defense. Despite this, Blastoise is still not fantastic in competitive singles, only ranked in the NUBL tier. Even with one of the best boosting moves in the entire game, Blastoise has really average offensive stats and can't take advantage of it very effectively. Blastoise also received a Gigantamax form in Generation 8. Dynamax and Gigantamax are banned in competitive singles, but they can be used in VGC, and Gigantamax Blastoise was pretty good actually. This guy could use the powerful move G-Max Cannonade, which deals a lot of damage and applies a powerful damage over time effect to non-water type enemies, dealing 1/6 of their HP per turn. Shell Smash would be super powerful on Blastoise if it was still able to Mega Evolve. Shell Smash would turn Mega Blastoise into an incredibly scary threat, patching up its low speed and allowing it to take advantage of all of its great coverage even better. And there is actually a format where this did happen and it was really broken. National Dex is a format free of Dex cuts. A lot of mechanics have been removed from the game in newer installments, like Mega Evolutions and Z moves, but National Dex allows you to play with everything in Gen 9 and everything from previous games. So Blastoise has access to Shell Smash and it can Mega Evolve, and unsurprisingly, this is extremely broken. This is the one format where Mega Blastoise was so strong that it had to be banned entirely. So at least Mega Blastoise has one format where it was broken, even though it's an unofficial metagame that is not cartridge accurate. I hope that they give Blastoise something in the future that allows it to function a bit better and competitive. A lot of Pokemon have received stat buffs over the years, and Blastoise would be a good candidate for such a thing. These stats were bad in Gen 1, and in Gen 9 they're atrocious. And perhaps give it a new ability besides Rain Dish. I mean, back in Gen 5 this could have been good alongside Perma Rain, but you also gave it to Tentacruel, who is just superior. Now Rain Dish is really not worthwhile on Rain teams, as Rain is no longer permanent, and Blastoise never uses this ability anymore. Give it something new that is actually useful. What do you think should be done to improve Blastoise in competitive? Let me know down below in the comments. And thank you for watching.